Hello Exiles, and today I'm going to be discussing all of the Path of Exile 1 content that I believe should potentially be ported over to Path of Exile 2, what content should stay in Path of Exile 1, and what content I feel is dead and buried. We will go through that in a minute. Before we get there, if you are wanting to gain access to the early access and you want a key, then I am currently doing a early access key giveaway, and the draw will be being held on Thursday the 5th of December. If you want to be in with a chance of winning, then check out the link in the description below for the free key, and good luck. Before we get into it, I'd just like to say if you are enjoying any of my videos and my content and they have been helpful for you and you have come back and watched a few of them, then throw us a subscribe and it will greatly help the channel grow, and thank you and I appreciate it. With that being said, let's jump into this content. So first things first, we are going to discuss which content we believe is best to be moving over to Path of Exile 2. So first things first, we are going to discuss the first one that's on the tree here. We are going to discuss Einhar, i.e. the Bestiary, or Bestiary as they call it. Now, I feel that this could be a nice addition, and someone once told me that Einhar is immortal. Now, potentially there is room for it to be added, and potentially it could be added with all of the rares, and we could have some form of extra crafting. However, I don't think they are going to add it, and if they are, then it is a potential, because if you think about it, at the end of the day, they have tried very hard to keep the crafting to an absolute minimum, with obviously the crafting currencies that they've included. To then throw Einhar and all of the crafting recipes that there are within the mix, it would potentially complicate things a little bit further. So I feel that they will not bring Bestiary back into Path of Exile 2. Next, we're going to move on to Rogue Exiles. Now, Rogue Exiles, I feel, is possibly something that is a nice, easy port, and it's a nice, easy addition. There isn't any crazy things that are needed. They are just Rogue Exiles, and if you think about it, we are still set in Rayclast, and there are potentially still Rogue Exiles that are still going to be wandering around Rayclast. So this is a good potential for the future that they may be brought back into Path of Exile 2. Next one is Blight. Now with Blight, as we know, it is a tower defense game, and Jonathan even said the other day in one of his interviews that it is a very easy mechanic to be added, and that even some elements in Act 4, spoiler alert, I think it was either 4 or Act 5, he did say that they are kind of fungally and fungal related. So potentially if he wanted to introduce Blight, he could throw a little element of it into that particular act at a later stage. That is something that they can do if they really wanted to bring it back into the game. Me personally, I enjoy Blight, but I also enjoy tower defense games. So for me, it's a maybe. It's a 50-50. They could add it in. It's a nice mechanic to add in. There's a ton of loot. It's very fixed in terms of the very varied selection that you get from the chests, and I feel that this is a good option. Next one I'm going to discuss is Incursion. Now, with the fact that Alva is in Path of Exile 2, and we don't know what her current situation is on whether she lives or dies or what, we have no idea because we haven't played Path of Exile 2 yet. She could potentially be brought back in, and we could still be given this access to the Temple of Atzoatl. This is a potential 50-50 again, just because she is still in the game and we haven't had confirmation whether they're going to add that back in again. You never know, she may take us back to a different temple that is even bigger, or potentially a new type of castle, or something else that may be in the past. They could cook up whatever the hell they wanted, some ancient civilization that we could go back to. That is entirely up to Alva and DGG. Now the next one is Delve. Now the way that I see it is that the new Atlas is potentially Delve-like. With it being infinite and expanding in all directions, then potentially I don't feel that they're going to add in another mechanic that is also infinite and also stretches out in all directions, because we already have one. There is no need to add Delve back in because we have it as the Atlas. So what do I think in terms of Delve? I don't think it's going to be added back in, and I know that there is a lot of love for Delve, but personally I don't think it will be added back in. Next one is Betrayal. Now, if you think about it, the Immortal Syndicate are, as the name suggests, immortal. They could potentially make a return, and Katarina could as well. We just don't know. However, again, this I feel is something that should stay with Path of Exile 1, and I don't feel that they should bring a convoluted mechanic into Path of Exile 2, seeing as they're trying to make it very user-friendly and user-friendly for new players as well. And I don't think Betrayal is a very easy to understand user mechanic. Unless they simplify it in some way, then I don't think Betrayal will be making a return in Path of Exile 2. Now, we already know that Expedition has made it back into Path of Exile 2, as has Breach, but the next one to discuss here is Legion. Will Legion make a return? Because at the end of the day, it is just a monolith, and it is just a load of soldiers that would appear and a load of monsters that appear based on the monolith. This again is a potential 50-50. They could add it in. The main thing that I see with Legion is the return of timeless duels. There is a lot of build defining duels that are based around timeless duels, whether it be your Elegant Hubris, whether it be your Brutal Restraint, whether it be your Glorious Vanity, whether it be Lethal Pride. All of these duels have gained some form of depth and wealth in the community, and they are used in a lot of builds. So I feel that if they were to bring that back, it would bring a good chunk of potential builds that would then be viable on top of everything that we already have in Path of Exile 2. Next one to discuss is Harvest. Now, personally, I think Harvest is dead. It's gone. It's buried. I remember when Harvest was initially released, and I remember Chris saying that this is the most craziest and outlandish build or league that they have ever done. It could potentially break the game, I remember him saying, and I remember him then saying that we may have just screwed ourselves over by giving everybody the flexibility of being able to do all of this crazy crafting. We just won't know. And I feel, again, similar to Einhar, they will not want to bring in Harvest because it adds more complexity. If they're not going to give us a crafting bench, then why would they give us a horticrafting bench? It's exactly the same. So Harvest, I think, is not going to be making a return. Next one is Abyss. Now, Abyss, again, is another mechanic that I feel is a good mechanic that can return. It is a nice, easy mechanic to add in. It will give us a good chunk of monsters, and it's a nice, easy mechanic, I believe, just to add in to certain zones. Obviously, it's just a hole in the ground that then expands and obviously rips through the ground, and obviously you would follow it and get monsters. That personally, I feel, is something that is going to be very beneficial, and it is going to be very useful for potential Path of Exile 2. So, do I feel that they're going to add in Abyss? I'm 50-50, but I feel that it is a potential maybe. Next one to discuss is a good old favourite, which is Harbingers. Now, with Harbingers, again, I feel that this is a good one that they could potentially add in the future, and there is no reason why they shouldn't, because it will potentially add in shards of all of the currencies that we already have and bring back the infamous potential mirror shard. There is no confirmation of whether we're going to get a fracturing orb back into the game for Path of Exile 2, but potential Harbingers added back into Path of Exile 2. What's your thoughts on that? I feel that it's a nice addition. It will bring back, they do give a lot of XP, and whether it brings back any of the Harbinger maps as well, like the Beachhead map, we just won't know. But again, I feel that this is a solid pick. It's a 50-50, but I feel that this is one that they could potentially add in quite easily without any problems. Next one to discuss is Tormented Spirits. Now, from any of the gameplay footage that we have seen, I have not seen Tormented Spirits, but again, I feel that it is a very niche mechanic that not many people play. There were quite a few people playing it when they had a good ghost busting method where you could literally get the Tormented Spirit to go inside of you for 30 seconds, and you would then run around the map and basically juice the entire map up and then leave and then character swap and then go back in and destroy the entire map. That was good. However, For Path of Exile 2, I don't think it's going to be something that they're going to add in. It's not a very well played mechanic, and it's not something that everyone's going to be like, yay, they brought back Tormented Spirits. No, I don't think it's going to be on the top list, and if it is on the list, it's going to be very low on their ranking. Next one is Heist. Now, there is a lot of people that play Heist. There is multiple people that I talked to in the Path of Exile Discord that will literally go from Act 9 and go straight into Heist, and they will not leave Heist until they have a good 50-60 divines, at which point then they will complete Act 10, and then they will then carry on and they have a nice chunk of money to be able to then build on their build. Whether that will then be brought into Path of Exile 2 is, again, I feel that it's a 50-50. They can bring it in if they really wanted to, because I'm going to assume that the harbour is still there. I'm going to assume that those people that you used may potentially be still alive. I just don't know. You got to bear in mind, it is now 20 years on. Some of them may have died, some of them may not. So in terms of trying to bring back a mechanic based on age, I don't know. This one, I'm a bit 70-30 that they're not going to bring it back, mainly because of the age of the actual people that you brought into the heist with you. They will have all aged, and some of them may no longer be alive in terms of the Rayclast lore. And the last thing that I wanted to discuss in terms of stuff that's on the Atlas skill tree at the moment is, will they bring back any of the Path of Exile 1 Pinnacle Bosses for the likes of Shaper, Elder, Cyrus, Searing Exarch, Eater of Worlds, the Maven? Will any of these be making a return for Path of Exile 2? In short, I think no. I don't think they will bring in back any content from Path of Exile 1, and that they will want to start on a fresh footing and create an entire new lore and an entire new storyline of bosses basically scaled onwards and upwards. We already have been given one boss that we don't know who it is at the moment. There was a lot of speculation that it could be Zana. There was speculation from a few people that it could be Kalandra. There was other people saying that it could be one of these bosses that's made a return. There is even a speculation that it could be the synthesis boss, Cortex, because if you actually do the fight again, you never actually kill the Cortex. He will show you some of his designs, which you then destroy, at which point then he then disappears through a portal and says that he shall return. There could be a possibility that it could be the synthesis boss returning. I just don't know. Following on from that, another question that someone asked is, do you think synthesis, if they are bringing back Cortex in a different variant, will we see the return of synthesis in some type of fashion? And again, the answer to that, I feel, is going to be a no. Just because synthesis and the way that you had to create your own memories and the island placement is very similar to how the new Atlas looks. But that is not eliminating the fact that we may still get Cortex back as a potential boss. How that will affect the Atlas and things like that is left to be desired. Just to touch now on a few mechanics which are not on the current tree, but we do still have some of them in the Path of Exile at the moment, and they have only just been added into the game for the Settlers of Kalgur season. So one of being is the Kalandra mirror element, where you are able to mirror items and obviously get potential crazy rolls on rings and amulets. Will that return in Path of Exile 2? I don't know, because the question is Kalandra still alive? Is the island and everything still going to be there? I'm not too genned up on the lore. I don't know whether Kalandra is still alive, all that good stuff. So potential, it is a potential, but again, it is messing around with the crafting. And again, I think they're trying to bring a little bit more of a simplistic design for the crafting into Path of Exile 2, and I don't think they want to bring in 16 different types of methods of crafting, just because that is when people start getting a little bit convoluted and it starts getting a bit crazy. The next thing is Sentinels. Now I feel, and again, you can comment on this as much as you like, I feel Sentinels would be a nice addition. Sentinels are a nice little throwaway league that they can add into these waypoints and maps that you will encounter at the beginning of your map, which will then empower a good little chunk of your map to then increase the volume of the drops. It is something that is quick and is literally a one button play style, and it will then juice that map accordingly. I feel Sentinel is going to be a nice league to add in, and I would be happy if they brought that back into Path of Exile 2. The next thing is the Wildwood. Will they bring back the Wildwood as we currently have in Path of Exile 1 state, where randomly you will encounter the Wildwood in your maps? Again, it is a 50-50, because if you think about it, you are then generating wisps. Now, they have already stated that when you are generating monsters through the ritual, there is a node on the new Atlas tree that says that there is a potential for some of the monsters to be Wildwood monsters. So there is a potential there with the link that they could bring back the Wildwood just to add a little bit more juice to your maps. Again, this is an option, that potential that they can add in at a later date. Now, another one that they could bring back is Metamorph. Now, I know that they have redesigned Metamorph recently and changed it, and they have changed the whole catalyst system and put it into Ultimatum. I don't feel that they are going to bring Metamorph back in any way, shape or form. It wasn't a very well played league anyway. It didn't really get that much love, and that is probably one of the reasons why they removed it from Path of Exile 1. For them to then bring it back into Path of Exile 2, I feel is a no-brainer, and I don't think that is going to happen. There'll be some other comments when I discuss this in the Discord about Scourge, and are we going to see Scourge modifiers? Well, Scourge modifiers have now been included into the Val modded roles. So when you Val an item, all of the mods that I believe are within that pool, some of them are Scourge mods. So that is kind of making a reappearance in some fashion. Though it may not be labeled as Scourge, it is kind of making a return just in the core game. And finally, Cruicble. Cruicble was one of them leagues that was very, very good. It was very cool. The 600% exploded totems were just absolutely busted. However, I do not feel that something like that is ever going to make a return into Path of Exile 2. As you think about it, again, it is a method of crafting where you would have to craft onto your weapon or onto your shield to make it very powerful. Again, this is something that I feel that they are not going to introduce into Path of Exile 2, and that will stay in standard. And that is basically it, guys. I want you to put your comments down in the comments below on what you believe the best pieces of Path of Exile 1 content should be included into Path of Exile 2. What do you believe should make a comeback? And tell me why. Why should it make a comeback? Also, what I would like you to do is, if I've missed any pieces of content or maybe missed any leagues that you want to include, tell me in the comments, what have I missed? And we will I can always do it in a future video, or I will reply to you in the comments. Other than that, guys, that is basically it. Thank you for watching, and until the next video, stay sane.